19 seconds, and then we didn't get 4 zeros on the clock, and they sent everybody home. So luckily we have more time to play with on the show. But yeah, it's hard to believe that in that time you can complete 2 22-yard passes and give everyone a heart attack.
Yeah, you can go 44 yards against Joe Barry faster than we air commercials here on 94.5 ESPN. It is unbelievable. So for those who are just getting caught up or, we're celebrating Christmas Eve that day, the Packers took a 3-point lead with 19 seconds to play, and they came about, what do you want to call it, a fourth of a second, a half a second from the Carolina Panthers having a shot at a game-time field goal.
It was remarkable. And they had no timeouts, by the way. None. Which, in the end, saved the Packers bacon on this thing. But it is staggering to me that, in 19 seconds, that, you can find a way that, this could go wrong. There's no way that can go wrong, right? There's 19 seconds. Nothing can go wrong in 19 seconds. And it is just, I keep telling people, it's amazing to me that I kind of half joked with a very good friend of mine texting, like, well, all I have to do is play defense for 19 seconds. And you're like, thank God they didn't have to play defense for 20 seconds.
Easier said than done.
Then they would have failed at that. They would have failed at playing defense for 20 seconds. So and if it gets into overtime, who knows what happens?
I watched it back. They showed the referee clock, and I was like, the ball got snapped. So I was confused for a second, not realizing it's when the ball hits the ground. That's when there can't be zeros on the clock. So they got the snap off. They were ready. Yeah. It didn't hit the ground in time. And right after the game ends, I'm in a room full of people. A lot of people really upset because honestly, the vibe at a watch party felt like a loss. Probably should have been a loss. And I look at my group text, different Packers fans from across the country or just friend groups, whatever. And the word lucky was used so many times. Now there was a bunch of other letters and words in there that we can't say on the radio, but lucky was used. And I don't know, when you watch that game or you watch some of the games the Packers have been in this year, wins and losses, I felt like that one was the luckiest win, and it was against the 2-12 Carolina Panthers, but they were lucky to get on that flight with a W.
So I'm going to go with fortunate. I feel like luck has a little more role of fate involved here. I think they were just fortunate the time right out. I did chuckle at the coach there for Carolina at the end of the game who said, I didn't get an explanation. What explanation did you need? Your guy spiked it. There was no time left on the clock, and the game is over. I don't know what elaborate thing he was looking for with that, but you are fortunate to get out of there with that. And I'm with you. I kind of had to stroll around the house and out into the yard and out. What became a stroll around the house was I need more space. So that became the driveway, which became a walk around the neighborhood because you're just like, what are we doing? And by the way, everything was going fine. They're up 2 touchdowns, and you're just like, even with this team, you're like, this is done. This is locked up. Okay, finally, we're going to have one that's going to be a breather, and it's not.
Nope.
And then what made it worse for me is that early on, as I'm kind of taking notes for this show that I want to get on there, early on, I'm like, oh, congrats, Bryce Young's not going to be the NFC Offensive Player of the Week. Actually, he might. I don't know. That was written so early that he may actually be a late candidate for Player of the Week. Regardless, he has his career game, right, with numbers that he hadn't even come close to. And then what made it all worse was watching yesterday and seeing that somehow Tommy DeVito finally got benched.
Yep.
Right? That finished it off. And on top of all this, Tommy DeVito got benched because he hasn't thrown a touchdown pass since he played the Packers. And I'm like, well, isn't that just the capper? This, how could I, even the next day, feel even worse about the defense? I know how. We can think back to Tommy DeVito, who got 7 times by the Saints, and then eventually they're like, you know what, this guy can't play. And the Eagles put him on the bench. And I'm like, that to me was the final humiliation of the weekend for the Packers. Was they escape with this win, and then Tommy DeVito ended up on the bench.
So 2 quick notes on that. Jen Latta from Jen, Gabe, and Chewy this morning, she brought up a point that said when she watched the game in real time, there's a Packers player that accidentally, and I'm throwing up some air quotes there, accidentally gets in the way of the referee spotting the ball. And she wanted to give him the game ball, called him the real hero, the MVP. So I have to go back and see who that national treasure of a human being was. But also, you just brought up the defense. I mean, the defense just got shredded. Like, it's just embarrassing. Bryce Young very much could be defensive player or offensive player of the week. DeVito gets benched after lighting up, looking like Tom Brady in the 2-minute drill against the Packers. And Baker Mayfield had a perfect passer rating. However, Packers head coach, we got some audio coming up here. Packers head coach Matt LaFleur somehow didn't blame his defense. Take a listen.
No, his fault.
Can you come out of this feeling any better about that side of the ball than you did last week?
Oh, certainly. I mean, that was definitely frustrating. I think, but it wasn't just on the defense. I mean, offensively, you got to give them a breather, especially if we're bleeding a little bit defensively. We got to find a way to, put together a scoring drive. We got to find a way to get some first downs to allow those guys to recoup. Momentum's a crazy phenomenon, and I think they got the momentum in the second half, and they were rolling in every phase.
I'll just give you the floor there. Like, come on.
What are they saying in the locker room, by the way? Because the Panthers come out, and I think, with the exception of the time running out, maybe they punted once, but they put up 3 touchdowns. The week before that, the Buccaneers actually took mercy at the end, or they would have scored on every second half possession. How is this not addressed? Hey, guys, we need to come out and make sure we don't let them have the momentum. And, oh, by the way, momentum takes more than just one touchdown. Like, you let them literally continue to build that. I do chuckle at LaFleur. Like, I keep thinking the next time I'm cooking on Sunday and I leave the roast in too long, I'm just going to go, well, that's obviously Matt LaFleur's fault because I was watching them go 3 and out and I was getting frustrated and I lost track of time. Like, what else is he responsible for that he could just, and I appreciate that you are trying to be the leader and take responsibility, and it comes on me. But come on. This is, in that case, call better plays, to give yourself more than 3 downs. But, next time somebody slips on defense, he's going to listen, I should be talking to the grounds crew people about the length of the turf at Lambeau Field. That's totally on me. I'd said the guy, we need to cut this down to 1/2 inch. And instead, I let it grow to 3/4 of an inch. The guy slipped. I should have talked to the equipment guy about what spikes we were using. That was my fault. If we kept the offense out there longer, they could have gotten the spikes changed. Like, what else is he going to do? I think he just needs once to say, and having not ever been a head coach in the NFL, but maybe just once go, right now we stink. And we stink out loud, and we need to figure that out, or people's heads are going to roll. Jobs are at stake because this is what happens. This is the NFL. This is the real job. And if you don't do it well enough, then there's going to be somebody else to take your job. And, maybe that's old school, and maybe, I listen too many Lombardi lectures from my dad. But, listen, if you guys can't do the job, we can find people who want to. There are a lot of guys that would like to play in the NFL, and a lot of coaches that would love to coordinate a defense. Antonio Pierce came, look what he's done with their defense. How about this? We're going to blitz last week. There's all kinds of ways to do it. I just know that the Packers don't have any way that they've done it. And if I am the offense, right, I'm sorry, but that gets really, what do you mean? How did you drag me into this, that this is our fault? We put up 30 points.
Without
33
points, which is, I think, their second highest since week 1. And when you look at I thought the offense had a great game, but when you look at Christian Watson's out, Jaden Reed's out, Wicks got hurt, Musgrave is peeing blood, Tucker Kraft left with an injury for a little bit. So, in my mind, those are Jordan Love's top 5 pass catchers. He's throwing the ball to a guy named Bo Melton, who I think I've only learned about 10 days ago, and Malik Heath, both who look pretty good. But, that's what Jordan Love is going out there and scoring 33 points with. And then you're like, oh, the offense probably – I get what coach is trying to do. Early in the season, he went in some post-game and said the defense got shredded. That was evident. But, at the end of bro, it is your fault, but not because the offense didn't do anything, but because you still employ your best friend. Not best friend, but, very good friend, I guess.
Right. But also look at Joe Barry, like on those two plays in the last 19 seconds, if I'm not mistaken, Quay Walker's on the field and Isaiah McDuffie are on the field. Okay? But they're not rushing the quarterback. So what are they doing? Why don't I have all my defensive backs on the field? If you're going to rush 3 down linemen, that's fine. But it's not like Quay's in there going to give some run support. And I'd rather have my defensive back or somebody trying to cover a tight end or whoever else is out there, even if the size isn't quite right. Because all I want to try to do is defend a pass and get them on the ground. And I'm like, why are those two guys even on the field? Which has nothing to do with their ability. It's, you talk about, score, time, clock situation. I just thought, what are those two fellas doing? Because they're not adding anything. If you want them to pin their ear back and go after the guy, great. But I'm not sure what the personnel grouping was there in those last two plays that made me think we knew what we were doing.
There's that, and just like when you look at Joe Barry has never done this at a high level. His track record, not well. His track record, I don't believe, has a top 15 defensive finish, regardless of like what stat you look at. And at some point, like when the Packers had Dom Capers and Twitter would take to Twitter every week and be like, fire Capers, fire Capers. Like the man had a top 5 defense, won a Super Bowl. There's at least a little bit of a track record there of having done this successfully. Joe Barry never has. And like, you're just killing, I feel like they're killing so much just opportunity for the team to, like, Jordan Love getting to play in a playoff game would be huge. It'd be huge for him. Go on the road would be huge for that young offensive line. They could really benefit from that. And they are doing everything defensively possible to take away that opportunity.
I understand the argument that this is a growth year and nobody knows what to expect. And if they don't make the playoffs, it's okay. But if you have a chance, any of these times, seasons are valuable and they go quickly. And I feel like they have wasted one here. Because what started out, hey, the Packers are going to be 7-8 going to the last 2 weeks of the season. Oh, that'd be fine. I'd take that. But it's not that cut and dried number at the end. There's ways to get there. And when you see that, no, this team has squandered, especially defensively, opportunities that could have made them a playoff team. And so they're maybe not a Super Bowl contender. I get that. But as you point out correctly, the fact that they could play into a playoff game, and Jordan Love could get that, and you kind of get that seasoning, you get that feeling, then I think you've lost an opportunity here. And that's what they've done. And that I think it is so glaringly on the defense in so number of ways. Every week I get on with Homer and I say, the same things happen all the time. They come out of the half and they score. Happened again. Every time the Packers get a touchdown, they give up a score. This one, they finally ended. It had been 9 straight. The Packers had gone on, dating back to the Pittsburgh game, 9 times in a row where they had scored a touchdown. They had allowed points. And that only ended here because they scored late in the second half and they basically went to halftime. I mean, they got it back. Carolina didn't really try that hard and the Packers waited away. So all these little things continue to be there, and there's never an improvement on these basic things.
That might be one of the most incredible stats I've ever heard. So 9 times in a row after the Packers scored a touchdown, they gave up points.
They gave up points. And
and Matt LaFleur is out here talking about momentum.
Yes.
Obviously, it's not a real thing. If you're just going to give up points after a touch, that's an incredibly damning stat for Mr. Barry.
Yeah. Until the end of the second half, or excuse me, the first half in this game where they scored, and then they did get them. They went 3 and out right towards the end of the half. Right, the Packers had that kind of wonky possession where they didn't get anything. But before that, they had gone 9 straight touchdowns. If you go to their last 9 touchdowns, they had allowed points afterwards.
This is why we have experts like you on the air and not just me wanting to fire everyone. We're going to get more with John Anderson right after the break. We got Rob Demovsky coming up at 5:30. Talking Packers, talk a little Jair, Mr. Captain Alexander coming up later on in the show as well. This is the Homer Hour. Tony Cartagena, cousin subbing for Homer, joined by my guy, ESPN's John Anderson. We'll be back after the break.
More of the Homer Hour coming up next on 94.5 ESPN.
all is well out on the roads. Only issue was an incident on 4394 southbound at Beecher. It was a car pulled over by a police officer, and that's pretty much all gotten cleared out of the way. So right now we are in good shape across the entire area right now. Traffic is brought to you by the Neal Group. They know how to minimize your taxes to keep more money in your pocket. Visit nealgroup.net. That's NEAL group.net. And check out the TMJ4 Storm Team forecast tonight. Decreasing clouds, a low of 32. Tomorrow, partly cloudy, a high of 42. From the WTMJ Traffic Center, I'm Debbie Lazaga on 94.5 ESPN.
Yeah, they're football guys, but they don't shy away from the big topics of the day.
Good morning, Tausch. How are you? Old T's a little, I'm not feeling 100%. Tummy ache?
Wilde and Tausch, presented by Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin. Also sponsored by American Family Insurance.
No, just I think with all that little stuff that's going around, and I'm going to grind.
Weekdays 9 to noon on 94.5 ESPN and available wherever you get your podcasts with Wisconsin On Demand.
Hey, this is Gary Ellison for my good friends at the Jewelry Center. It's the only place I go when I'm looking to get some new jewelry. Dean and his team are always friendly and know just what I'm searching for when I stop by. I may not always know what type of jewelry I want, but the professionals there sure do. Plus, if I need repairs on watches or other jewelry, the Jewelry Center does that too. Find the Jewelry Center in Burlington, Brookfield, and Greenfield, or shop their entire collection online, including their popular Lightbox lab-grown diamonds at shoptjc.com.
Do you check your savings account and wonder if you're even saving at all? At Town Bank, we view banking differently and actually want to see your savings grow. With our amazing new CD rates, you can now earn even more, so you can sit back and relax. Stop banking the same way, expecting different results, and start earning more. Go to townbank.us/locknewrates or visit a Town Bank branch nearest you today. Bank differently with Town Bank. Member FDIC.
Woo! Hey, this is Ben Brust from Kyle Brust and Nortman on ESPN Wisconsin. People can't stop screaming about the Screamin' Sicilian frozen pizza, and no wonder. There's plenty to scream about, like the buttery stone-fired crust, secret recipe tomato sauce, mounds of whole milk mozzarella, and tons of premium toppings. Find Screamin' Sicilian in your local grocer's freezer and find out for yourself why Sport called Screamin' Sicilian's Holy Pepperoni frozen pizza the best of the best. Screamin' Sicilian, taste what all the screaming is about.
Discount Liquor. There's nothing quite as celebratory as popping open a bottle of bubbly and pouring a crisp glass of champagne. And we do it pretty often on New Year's Eve. But have you ever wondered why? Hi, this is Marie from Discount Liquor. The tradition of toasting champagne dates back to the 17th century when a monk named Dom Perignon perfected the wine bottling process. At the time, bubbly wine caused bottles to explode. Perignon made the bottles thicker and added a cage that prevents the cork from popping. It was an expensive process, so champagne was saved for special occasions, like celebrating a new year. Let Discount Liquor help you with our tremendous selection of over 2,000 varieties of beer, 3,000 types of liquor, and over 8,000 wines. And yes, we do stock hundreds of champagnes and bubblies from around the world, suitable for all budgets. Discount Liquor, 2 locations, in Milwaukee on 51st in Oklahoma, and in downtown Waukesha on Main and Barstow. And from our family to yours, have a happy and safe holiday season. Discount Liquor. See all of our weekly specials at discountliquorinc.com.
This is the Homer Hour on 94.5 ESPN.
She said I don't spend time like I really should.
I'm not going to wait 19 seconds this time. I'm going to get right into the action. This is the Homer Hour, 94.5 ESPN. Tony Cartagena, cousin subbing today for Homer. John Anderson of ESPN with me, kind of reacting to, it's not even the Packers win so much as the defense just sucked on Sunday. That's just the word I'm just going to go with. They gave up 30 points to Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. John, you mentioned in the first segment after the game, you had to kind of walk around a little bit, kind of get your bearings. Are you a stressed out watcher when you're watching the Pack?
Yeah, but I'm very, I am, you wouldn't know it by watching. I just sit.
Internal? It's not healthy.
Yeah. And stew. Every once in a while, I will scream. Like at the end of the game, I did. I'm like, what are they doing? Like 22 yards. Like who gives up not just one, twice, 220. The number of 20-plus yard plays they've had over the last couple weeks is staggering. And
it was like 7 against the Buccaneers. I feel like they announced it on the TV at one point. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
And by the way, Stokes was there and Jair was back. So you're like, wait, these guys should at least be a little better than 20 yards down the field, keeping these guys.
Nope.
And every time you're trying to find a ray of light, there's the silver, every time you're trying to find the silver lining, there's just more dark clouds, right? Like Bryce Young goes for a 312 or his passer rate. So another guy whose passer rating is 110, they put up the graphic. Oh, look, it's the Carolinas got their first score in the first half since October 29th. I'm like,
yep.
What is the turnstile that this has become?
It was their first touchdown in like 3.5 games or 2.5 games or something.
Yes. And then fortunately, I have a daughter in college. She's 20 years old, but she's really knows what's happening. And she goes, Dad, remember the show Outer Banks? And I'm like, of course not. I have no idea what that show is.
Great show.
Okay, well, apparently the one guy says stupid things have good endings all the time. And I'm like, okay, well, that's what happened here. Stupid things have good endings all the time. And this is where I finally found my solace, is from a television show I've never seen about a bunch of rich teenage kids or whatever it is called Outer Banks.
Just text your
stupid things have good endings all the time.
Text your daughter and say Pogue for life. And then she'll think that you know what Outer Banks is about. You'll fit right in. It'll be great.
Yeah, she's downstairs. I'll ask her afterwards. Yeah, but she's not going back to school yet. But so I'm like, okay, well, I'll hang my hat on that, because otherwise next week, we're going to get Nick Mullins, and that's just part of the old DeVito Mayfield Young Mullins murderers row. I don't know if we can handle that.
Nick Mullins is about to get himself a payday going against the Packers without TJ Hawkinson, who was announced earlier, torn ACL, MCL, done for the year.
Yeah. Can we point out though that the Packer quarterback is a calm dude,
right?
Like, because everything is crumbling around him. The defense has just given up this lead. Holy crap. I thought I was safe. The work is done. And the guy just goes out. And again, he just took care of business. And now he just needs to know next time, leave, 8 seconds. But I thought he was, again, in terms of maturation and all these other, like that guy was just Jordan Love again. Like, I think he's the deal. Like every week every week the defense does something to make me lose faith in them. And every week something Jordan Love goes, okay, they got the right guy in place.
It's almost a disservice to him because he was really good. Even there were throws that he'd missed in previous weeks that he collected himself and he made this past week. And just like every single week he plays, there are signs that show, all right, even if he's not Favre, even if he's not Rodgers, we're talking about all-time greats here. Like, he's the real deal, and he's a real quarterback in this league. And then I just feel like he's going to be expected. Like, how many points do you think he legitimately has to put up against the Vikings or the Bears to get wins? Because I think it starts with a 4.
I don't know if it's a 4, but I think it's a 3. Yeah, I think for sure. But you watch him, and because he is young, A, and B, we're too quick. We don't want to put him in the pantheon of the two guys that were before him because they were so good. But the throw he makes to the tight end there.
We don't have to pretend to know any of their names. They were out without his 5 top pass catchers. It's fine.
But that's before the guy went out. Right, but he threads the needle, and you're like, that's a hell of a ball. And if it's Favre, right, we'd be building another statue to him because this guy is still young and we don't know. But he made some great throws, and yeah, every once in a while he still gets squirrely. But you also think, okay, here's a guy that literally hasn't played tackle football in 4 years or 3 years where he didn't. There's preseason, but that's vanilla. Like, this is the first time. So every once in a while he's going to come up against something he hasn't seen. Or every once in a while he's going to get a little rush of blood to the head and miss a guy on a pass that you go, how do you miss that? Well, you miss that because, for 3 seasons you've been learning. But he was really good. And your point, with those 5 guys out, as often as the Packers, people bitched, we didn't draft enough people. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have the right pass catchers. Why can we never do that? Like, this guy doesn't seem to care who, as long as they got an eligible number, he just is like, okay, I'll throw to you.
Yeah.
And maybe 5 years from now, he'll have the cachet to go ahead and then start complaining. Why don't I have a top round guy? But he seems to just go, okay, if that's the guy that's out there, that's the guy I'll throw it to.
That's a good point.
I've always maintained that, right, that I get that you want to have those people, but if the quarterback's really good, all those pass catchers get infinitely better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the key. For years, the example I always use, watch Jay Cutler, and they're like, if Jay Cutler just had more weapons, and they drive Kevin White or whoever it was from West Virginia could say that. But it didn't matter who you put around him. Jay still made dumb decisions and threw it to the other people. And it didn't matter who you put around Brett Favre. Bill Schrader, God bless him, right? Really, he's a good guy. But how much money did he make him on the contract to go to the Lions? How many guys did Aaron Rodgers make money for because he was really good? Well, I'd much rather spend my money and have that quarterback and let him make the other guys around him better. And I think Love does that. He makes those guys around him, like you said, Melton. I'm like, wait, when did James Lofton come back? Number 80, he's not on the roster. Is 80's on the roster? Who knew that?
Donald Driver taking a break from delivering subs to catch a couple passes on third down on Sunday.
By the way, we can tell how old you are. I think James Lofton. You think?
Yeah. You know what? I wasn't gonna. I feel like as the younger person, I can never say like you really aged yourself. Nope. I was just gonna let that one fly. But when I see 80, I think double D.
That's fine. It's like when I was visiting with AJ Dillon. I'm like, dude, 28. God bless you. You're doing great, but it's always going to be Willie Buchanan. He kind of looked at me like quarterback in the 70s. It's okay. Don't worry about it.
I was about to start Googling it. So.
No, you should know Willie. He was a great first round draft pick out of San Diego State. He was an awesome talent before they sent him back to San Diego. But I think Love should, because of what's happened with the defense, that malodorousness has sort of covered up what he did and how well he played. And then, as you kind of alluded to and has been discussed, the Jair Alexander thing.
Oh yeah,
welcome back to the team. Really glad to have you. I don't know if he really appointed himself captain or if he was just curious that it'd been so long since he'd been at the game. Like, hey, what are you guys doing here in the middle?
What's happening out here?
What are you doing? Oh, coin flips. I know how this works. Tails, right? And like then you're into it. And so I do. I just think he was baffled. But I guess apparently since you're from Charlotte or Mint City or Mint Hill or wherever he is, I guess that gives you the right to just pop on in and take over.
So the guy who wrote the story about Jair Alexander's, I believe he used the word bizarre day on Sunday. Rob Demovsky of ESPN is going to join us here in a second. And if you're just catching up, Alexander appointed himself captain and then almost screwed up. He won the coin toss and almost screwed up what he said. So the Packers almost had to kick to start the game and to start the second half. You'll hear more of that next with John Anderson. I'm Tony Cartagena, cousin subbing for Homer today on the Homer Hour. Rob Demovsky coming up next, 94.5 ESPN.
More of the Homer Hour coming up next on 94.5 ESPN.
So far, so good this afternoon. Really haven't seen any kind of major delays. Right now, Brown Deer Road to downtown, looking at about a 14-minute ride. It's bunching up just a little bit coming out of the Capitol Drive area, but overall, we are looking at pretty good ride. And check out the TMJ4 Storm Team forecast tonight. Decreasing clouds, a low of 32. Tomorrow, partly cloudy with a high of 42. Weather is brought to you by Adams Generators, the #1 rated Generac dealer in Wisconsin. Call for your free quote today at 262-944-2010 for power peace of mind, or visit adamspower.com/generators. From the WTMJ Traffic Center, I'm Debbie Bazaga on 94.5 ESPN.
Here in Wisconsin, a good old-fashioned is an important way of life. And that's where my friends at Perky's Old Fashioned come in. Hey, it's ESPN Milwaukee's Gabe Neitzel here to tell you about the easiest way to put together an Old Fashioned. Perky's offers both brandy and bourbon Old Fashioned mixes. And get this, the booze is already in there. Just add the soda of your choosing and you'll have Grandma Perky's Old Fashioned in the palm of your hand. Perky's is locally made and great for get-togethers of all kinds. Get perked up and head to perkysspirits.com for your nearest Perky's location.
Hey, it's Gary Olson here for Wisconsin Indoor Golf Center. Looking for that midday escape? Or maybe you want to impress a client? No matter the season, rain, snow, or shine, Wisconsin Indoor Golf Center is open for you. A top-tech, cutting-edge golf experience that gives you the chance to play legendary courses. Wisconsin Indoor Golf Center simulators, entertainment, and best Bloody Marys make it feel like summer all year round. Just $35 an hour gets you a round and puts that summer feel back in your life. Book your bay at WisconsinIndoorGolfCenter.com.
Homer here. There's a good chance you're on a budget. We all are. She wants a diamond. You know it, I know it, and Robert Hack Diamonds knows it too, because they offer a huge selection of lab-grown diamonds, and they sell them at crazy prices. How about 2-carat total weight diamond studs for $9.99? Robert Hack Diamonds can get any size, shape, or clarity in natural or lab-grown diamonds. Don't buy until you call Robert Hack Diamonds. $9.99 for a 2-carat pair of diamond studs. Oh, baby! Robert Hack Diamonds in Greenfield and Brookfield. Why overspend when you can save at Robert Hack Diamonds for the same diamond you're looking for? Better for less. Some jewelers are charging nearly $5,000 for a lab-grown diamond. Not Robert Hack. Your visit will be worth it. Robert Hack also offers repair services and cash for your old gold. They got some of mine. Remember, before you do anything, call Robert Hack Diamonds. Visit RobertHackDiamonds.com for information, RobertHackDiamonds.com, and visit them in Brookfield or in Greenfield.
Hello, I'm Dan Fields. If you're in the market for a full-size 8-passenger SUV, look no further than the Defender 130. And with the Defender 90, the 110, and this 130, there's luxury in the right size for everyone. And now is the best time to take advantage of a great offer like this.
For a limited time, get 3.9% special APR rate for up to 60 months on new 2023 Defenders at Land Rover Waukesha. Go to LandRoverWaukesha.com.
Stay up to date on the green and gold all season. The Green and Gold Fix podcast is brought to you by Potawatomi Casino Hotel. Luxury stay, elite play, unwind in sophisticated comfort. Win big, dine, and experience the events in Milwaukee.
The next disaster is coming. Make a plan. Keep extra medication on hand. Make copies of important documents. Stay informed and be ready. Learn more at americares.org/send-us-in.
You're listening to the Homer Hour on 94.5 ESPN.
Yeah, no, I told them that, I said, I want our defense to be out there. And they all looked at me like I was crazy. I'm like, I mean, it's pretty simple what I said. Like, I want the defense to be out there. They like, you mean defer? I'm like, yeah, I guess.
That is Mr. Captain Jair Alexander of the Green Bay Packers. This is the Homer Hour, 94.5 ESPN. I'm Tony Cartagena, cousin subbing for Homer. That's John Anderson laughing in the background because, well, Jair Alexander appointed himself captain, and the guy who wrote the story, ESPN's Rob Demovsky, is with us now. What's up, Rob?
Tony, how are you, man? Long time no talk.
Yeah, so Homer was supposed to host today, and then I just jumped out to midfield and was like, nah, I got this. Don't worry about it.
That's the way things seem to run around organizations in this state. I could not believe it. Like, I mean, the Packers don't have the same captains every week. So, you know, and I got to be honest with you, I don't usually pay a whole lot of attention to the three guys that walk out there for the coin toss, but I happened to notice that about an hour before kickoff that they had tweeted the three captains, and I don't know why it caught my eye, but it did. And then I see Jair go out there, and I'm like, wait a minute. And look, like, it was possible that, you know, he was a last-minute addition because, you know, they didn't know if he was going to play, and this was his hometown. But I felt like it was important to ask after the game, and, of course, we find out that he just did it on his own. And it sounds funny, but it's really not when you, for two reasons. One, he almost botched it, right? Like he almost basically said we're going to kick off, which means that the Packers would have kicked off to start both halves. But the worst thing, I think, is just the total lack of regard for, you know, authority and the contrition about how he hasn't played for so long, yet he's been practicing. I mean, to me, it's just a total it's completely tone deaf by Alexander and probably a sign that he's not really respecting authority.
So I'm sure John will have some real questions here for you, especially because, like, yeah, just the trend here with Jair is kind of wild. Yeah. But he said in that quote, like, you know what I mean. Is that just a dumb rule by the NFL? Like, you have to be so specific. Like, all right, we know if we're going to take defense here, we want the ball to start the second half. Like, should they just give up? You have to have, like, the perfect Jeopardy style, like, what is I want the ball answer?
Yeah, right. Yeah, kind of, but there's three answers. It's kick off, receive, or defer. I mean, that's so really, by saying we want to play on defense, he really didn't answer the question, which is why Alex Kemp, the referee, clarified. And I will point this out. Matt LaFleur told us that, he goes to let me back up. Before every game, there's a coach's meeting with the officials, okay? And to Matt LaFleur's credit, he always tells the officials, hey, if we win the toss, this is what we're going to call, just so there's no confusion. And look, the officials don't want to get this wrong. They don't want it to become a big thing. Because when was it? Was it a Pittsburgh? Was it Jerome Bettis or somebody who made
Phil Luckett. That was Phil Luckett there with Bennett and the Lions.
Yeah, exactly. So that they don't want that situation.
Can I just tell you, I do think it's hilarious. Like these are like I get what you're saying in terms of the larger part of that, but if you just sit back, that is comical that this guy went and did that. You're like, okay, I would rather have Captain Steubing call the toss or Captain Kangaroo because even then might know what to do with this.
Merrill
and then in the end where he goes,
I believe was his name.
Yes, sure. You're like, because even at the end when he goes, they knew what I meant, I think. Like, he wasn't even sold on what he was saying.
Right. No, it is comical. It's comical if it weren't if there weren't bigger issues with both Jair and this defense. Like, it is funny in the sense. But, it's at this point, I think Jair has, he's rubbed some people the wrong way in the organization. Does that mean his time here is over? No, I don't necessarily think so. He's still a really good player. But there are certainly some things that need to be fixed, and this is putting 1 and 1 together and coming up with 2. But my assumption would be that if they make a change at defensive coordinator and it's someone that Jair likes, then everything's fine next year.
So in honor of Jair, real quick, I think I would go Captain Jack Sparrow. But John and Rob here, who are your favorite captains? Then, when you think of all-time great captains, who are you guys going with?
Well, I think I'm going to go with Captain Morgan.
that's a 1A, 1B type situation for me there.
Yeah, I'll probably go with Captain Antonil.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, I'd go with him. I don't know, Ahab, but I'm a Melville guy who does, the Great American Novel. I'm down with that. But it's or Steubing. Listen, how do you mess with the Love Boat, right? Which is different than the Vikings. Because didn't the Vikings have a Love Boat one time too and got in all kinds of trouble?
That they did. That they did.
They also had a Whizzinator as well. So.
they had that. And by the way, they've got to go take care of them. So Rob, after all, but on the most serious note, of all the things that went down last week, here's the defense, and here's we're going to keep this. We're going to keep Barry. We're standing by him. The fact is, there was another step backwards. There was another regression. It might even be considered worse in that the Buccaneers came out and just plowed them. Okay, that's one thing. This is another one where you're safely ahead, and then you still let it get away. So there still has to be some things.
To me, that's where it's most troubling. It's who you played and how it happened that's more troubling than anything else that's happened this year, right? I mean, okay, so let's just go back a couple weeks. I mean, the Giants aren't any good, but Saquon Barkley is still pretty good, and Tommy DeVito was a runner, so okay, fine, they give up a bunch of rushing yards. Then you go to Tampa, and Baker Mayfield hasn't had the career that many thought, but obviously the talent is still there, and they got a couple guys, right? I mean, they got Mike Evans. And they got Chris Godwin, right? So you can sort of, not that you're excusing it, but you can sort of see it. But in this case, I mean, this was an offense that, what were they averaging, 11 points a game over the last month or so, or whatever it was? I mean, it was 9. It was terrible, right? So, that's the part that's most troubling. However, and I say this, and I'll probably be wrong, but you look at Minnesota's offense, I mean, they don't have T.J. Hawkinson, right? Jordan Addison got hurt, if I'm not mistaken, in the game. They don't know who they're going to play a quarterback, or if they do, they're not saying, at least until tomorrow. So, you would think, okay, that this is a chance for the Packers defense to sort of turn it around, figure it out a little bit, and obviously with what's at stake, go win the game. Now, that said, somebody else will probably come out and beat them and run all over them. So it's so hard to predict who's going to be the guy that beats you, but it sort of feels like somebody's gonna beat you in this case.
Can coordinators go ahead, John?
I was going to say, yeah, maybe I just have too many scar tissues because you lay that scenario out, Rob, and I think, well, that's what makes sense, but that's what makes sense with all the rest of them. And I think, no, here's the Vikings going, oh, well, at least we can get healthy here. We can go out and feel good about ourselves. All these plays will work.
I just think the Vikings are in trouble. I really do. I just think they've got so much going against them with the quarterback situation, with the injury situation, with the skill players. I'd have a hard time seeing Minnesota, really, really tear these guys apart.
And so we brought this up earlier, and I need your opinion here now because I think because of both the defensive performance again and the way they collapsed there, we kind of have buried that Jordan Love was really salty on that drive to go get the field goal. That dude just came out and said, all right, if you guys can't handle this, I guess I'll take care of business. And I thought that was huge. Again, for him, he was great.
Right. I think as we've gone on here, he's checked a lot of boxes, and that was sort of a different one. I mean, he's had fourth quarter, scoring drives before, but this was one where, okay, they blew the lead, right? And now he had to do it, which just to me is another, it's another situation. You can never prepare for and practice all the situations you're going to come up late games, that there's going to be all these things that just when you think you've seen every situation that there's something different. But to me, that was just another thing where, okay, the momentum was going bad and the defense was blowing it. And, if they don't get anything done on that last drive, they probably lose the game. So I think, ever since sort of the, I'm trying to think, I guess it was, he was pretty good late in the Giants game, right? He got him out ahead. He wasn't great, for the first part of that game. But, I think since the fourth quarter of the Giants game, he's been pretty darn good. And he was good before that in spots too. So I do think they're trending in the right direction with him. And the other thing too, look at all the guys he was missing on that drive too, right? I mean, obviously you didn't have Watson. Reed gets hurt, or Reed wasn't playing. Wicks gets hurt. They had some guys, some real good players missing, and yet, a guy like Tucker Kraft is going to make a play for you in a couple of different spots. So I think, and then Romeo Doubs obviously has played well in that game. So I think if you throw all that in there, he has definitely answered a lot of questions. Of course, it doesn't hurt, to have Aaron Jones with you too, and it's no coincidence that they're two highest output games from a scoring standpoint are the two that Aaron Jones was basically fully healthy for.
Rob, this may be a little bit longer of an answer, but when you think of Jordan Love and what he's, you said checking all the boxes, showing promise, the defense sucks. How eerily similar is that to 2008 when Rodgers first took over?
Yeah. Well, and Tony, remember, Rodgers was 1-7 in those one-score games, and a lot of those games he had the lead and the defense blew it, right? There was this narrative on him that he couldn't lead any of those fourth quarter comebacks. Well, a lot of times he did put him ahead, and then the defense blew it. And of course, you remember what happened after that season. They made a defensive coordinator change. Obviously, completely different coaching staff, and Mike McCarthy did what he did with Bob Sanders, and then hired Don Capers. Look, if Matt LaFleur doesn't make a change, after the season, then he probably should be let go. Not that that's going to happen, because we're pretty sure he's going to make a change. But the important thing, though, too, that happened that off season was, they sort of changed the scheme. It's one thing to change defensive coordinators, but if you're just going to run the same scheme, which basically is kind of what they've done here, it's a variation of the 3-4, but Mike Pettin ran a variation of the 3-4 also. They brought in Don Capers. They gave him 2 first-round picks in B.J. Raji and Clay Matthews. Now, you could sit here and say, well, Goody's given this defensive coordinator 1 million first-round picks, right? Everybody but Jordan Love, has been first-round picks. The defense has been, a first-round pick on defense. So it's going to be such an important hire that you can't afford to get it wrong, and you have to give credence to the fact that like your general manager has put all kinds of resources from a draft standpoint into this defense. Now, could you sit here and say that he drafted the wrong players? I'm sure that Joe Barry and that defensive staff are probably sitting in there going, well, this guy stinks, this guy's no good at this guy's no good at that. And Brian Gutekunst and his personnel staff are probably going, well, these coaches don't know how to use this guy and they don't know how to develop that guy. But clearly there's a disconnect there.
ESPN's Rob Demovsky joins the Homer Hour. Tony Cartagena and John Anderson on for Homer today. Rob, before we let you go, and you just kind of explained all the differences or the similarities in the Rodgers love in those years. We clearly just live in a circle, but I'm pretty sure John committed to doing this if the Packers make the playoffs. Ben Brust of KBN said he's going to jump in a Lake Michigan to be exact. If the Packers don't fire Joe Barry, can we get you to the nearest body of water?
What do I have to do, right? Yeah, I'll put it to you this way, Tony. I'll go out on a limb and say I pretty much. Well, I'm going to say this. People who know me know that more than anything in this world, I hate ketchup. Cannot stand ketchup.
Okay.
If they don't fire Joe Barry, you can get me the biggest burger from wherever you want, pile it with ketchup, and I'll eat it.
All right. Let's hold them to that. I'll get the good stuff, the Heinz and everything. We'll deliver it right to you.
See, and I was thinking if they don't fire him, I'm going to go jump in a lake and drown myself because that's just right? Because the opposite of the polar plunge of what's going to happen there. Real quick, Rob, I said, if you look at this, right, everything's relative. Oh, if the Packers could be 7-8, transitional year, we'd take that. But I maintain that somehow, because there were these opportunities, and there still is, that this becomes a wasted. You've wasted a year here that could have been more, and it's hard in the NFL because years go by quick and they're valuable. And to get in a playoff, even if you're not a Super Bowl contender, but to get in and have a playoff game and get those experiences, I think is really valuable. And so, even though you go 7-8, okay, that's probably okay. I feel like the dynamic has changed within the season that they've really wasted an opportunity here.
Yeah, if they don't get in, I totally agree with you. But we do have to go back to, the first week of September, and what did we talk about was the most important thing of the season, is to find out whether Jordan Love can play, and then if he can, what you need to do to supplement the roster and build around him. And we're sitting here, with 2 games to go, and Jordan Love's got, 27 or 28 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions, I think it is, right? And that, and his passer ratings like in the 90s, and he's had, I think it's 5 of the last 6 games are 100+ passer rating. I do think that you would take that and then you'd say, all right, what do we have to do next year to do what, sort of what Rodgers did in 2009 and go to the playoffs, and then a year later, they're in the Super Bowl. So I don't think they're that far away from the plan that we thought they needed to, but you're right. They've had an opportunity here and they blew some games against some bad teams, that really cost you. So, and you're right about playoff berths, John. You don't take these things for granted. You never know when they're going to come. It's hard to get into the playoffs in this league. So when you have a chance, you got to do it because you never know, right? I know in 2010 we thought the Packers were a pretty good team. They had some injuries that, left them at 8-6 with 2 games to go, and they had to win those last 2 to get in the playoffs. But I think you sort of felt pretty good about their team. I don't know that we feel that great about this team, but if you get in, you never know. And that experience of getting in and just the culture, they don't want to walk around here for the next 8 months or whatever it is till the next season starts, 9 months, going, we've missed the playoffs again, right? That's a thing. I believe that stuff does sort of have a feeling of, when you're talking about culture. I don't know that it has anything to do with how you're going to play the next season, but I think you feel good about yourself, and that translates into things that you get done over the off season, and you go into the next season not having to answer the question, you're going to miss the playoffs 3 years in a row or something like that. So that's why I think it's important.
I haven't decided if I actually want Barry fired now or if I want to deliver Rob a burger full of ketchup on around January 8th or 9th. We'll find out. Stay tuned the rest of the season. Rob, thanks so much for joining us today, man.
All right, guys.
Thank you,
We'll be
Rob.
seeing you. Have a great week. See ya.
This is the Homer Hour. When we return, it'll be a quick segment, but going to run down memory lane as John Anderson was in attendance for a 30-year anniversary at Lambeau Field. Stick around.
The Homer Hour is back after this on 94.5 ESPN. Yeah, they're football guys, but they don't shy away from the big topics of the day.
Good morning, Tausch. How are you? Old T's I'm not feeling 100%. Tummy ache?
Wilde and Tausch, presented by Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin. Also sponsored by American Family Insurance.
No, I think with all that little stuff that's going around, and I'm going to grind.
Weekdays 9 to noon on 94.5 ESPN and available wherever you get your podcasts with Wisconsin On Demand.
Ho, 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 I need a window.
Baby, it's cold outside.
So where do I go? Ho,
Come on,
ho.
Santa. Go to Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin. Put no money down, no payment, and no interest for up to 18 months.
Pella now, pay later. Ho,
That's right, Santa. Plus, our elves install year-round and in as little as 1 day. Offer ends December 31st. Schedule your free consultation today at PellaWI.com.
Certain restrictions apply. See show for details.
An ESPN Radio Extra Point with Joe Fortenbaugh.
It's easy to win a football game and be nice and pleasant and affable with the media afterwards. What's challenging is how you handle defeat. Kyle Shanahan and the Niners went through some adversity early in the season. You didn't hear him fighting with the media. Mike Tomlin's been dealing with it for 2 months. Yeah. He continues to come out. He sticks to his script. He's got his values, and he preaches those. There are guys that handle it well and guys that don't. And Sirianni seems like a guy right now who's just coming a little bit unhinged. And it speaks to the value behind the scenes of Jalen Hurts talking about how commitment is apparently an issue with this team. That's one comment that raises a red flag. You've got the switch at defensive coordinator late in the season. That raises another red flag. You've got a head coach who's getting all defensive with the media despite being, 10-4 this season. That raises a red flag. Mm-hmm. Something's going on that we don't all know about right now, and it feels like eventually that story will leak and we'll go, now we see why there was a big problem.
Yo, 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 what's up, party people? I'm Julie Foudy.
And I'm Lynn Ozawi.
We host the ESPN podcast Laughter Permitted, where we have candid chats with trailblazing women in sports and beyond.
We've talked with goats like Billie Jean King, Simone Biles, Mia Hamm, Sue Bird, Candace Parker, Michaela Schifrin, just to name a few.
So grab a donut or 500 and check us out wherever you get your podcasts. And a huge shout out to our presenting sponsor, Ally, who has supported us since day one.
It's Laughter Permitted.
Thanks for calling Discover. This is Anjali.
Hi, it's Jennifer Coolidge. I just got an alert for a strange charge on my card.
No problem. We make sure you're never held responsible for unauthorized purchases on your Discover card. Let's see. Did you purchase something from a t-shirt cannon store yesterday?
Absolutely not. No, I already have 3.
$0 fraud liability guarantee. It pays to Discover. Learn more at discover.com/credit card. Limitations apply.
Come to Fiserv Forum to see the resurgent Wisconsin Badgers on December 28th and 29th in the Quick Trip Holiday Face-Off. See how Coach Hastings has rebuilt the Badgers into a national power. Get your tickets now to see the Badgers battle the Air Force Falcons in primetime on day one. The excitement continues with perennial power and 3-time national champion Minnesota Duluth playing the Northeastern Huskies in the other semifinal. Don't miss the college hockey action coming to Milwaukee and see who wins the championship on day 2. Get your seats today at Ticketmaster.com.
Smoking hot deals just keep coming with quick hot savings from Quick Trip. And right now we're cooling off with $2.99 a gallon Nature's Touch milk. All 1 gallon, 2%, 1%, and skim Nature's Touch milk, just $2.99. Hey, looking to make that perfect movie night milkshake? Or how about making those morning waffles extra fluffy? Our fresh, straight from our dairy Nature's Touch milk is on sale and ready for your fridge. Quick hot savings from Quick Trip. Yeah, we're here to save you some moolah.
You're listening to the Homer Hour on 94.5 ESPN.
One final segment here on the Homer Hour. Tony Cartagena, cousin subbing for Homer John Anderson with us as he is every Tuesday. John, a little bit behind, not really behind the scenes, watching the game Packers-Panthers over the weekend. and my uncle, he decided to break out this drinking game, right? And it's a stack of cards. And when something from your card popped up, it told you how many drinks to take, and then you got points for it. I don't know how many times I got the card that said if there's a passing play over 20 yards, take 2 drinks. I advise, but don't advise. Like, just make sure you have a driver if you're watching the Joe Barry defense. But that was a game. That was something. So I know you said you're kind of an internal, stressed out watcher of the game. It just just a little tip. It might make it better for you.
Take the edge off
a little bit,
or get plowed. The other thing I've told Homer is I sit and watch the game. I am not a person that moves. So like if I'm in a chair, I don't go, oh well, that's an unlucky chair. I need to move to the other spot. Like I don't have a bearing on the outcome. Where I sit doesn't matter. My wife's the opposite. She'll go upstairs, she'll go downstairs, she'll scream, nothing I do affects what happened in Green Bay. It doesn't happen in Charlotte. It doesn't happen in New York. None of those things matter. I just sit and every once in a while I have a brief outburst. And Joe Barry has brought some of those to the fore, which is a shame.
My mom was at a game in like 2007, I think, and they lost on the road. And people still bring up when she walks into a room, and she couldn't care less about the Packers, and they just go, "Oh, they're going to lose now," just because she was in the building when they lost 100 years ago, almost 100 years ago, but not exactly. 30 years ago today, the Lambeau Leap was born. I was just listening to an interview with Jason Wilde on WTMJ, and he brought up the fact that the Lambeau Leap never should have happened because Reggie White was out of bounds. John Anderson, you were in the building. What do you remember about that, I guess, somewhat historic but memorable celebration by Leroy?
Well, first off, as long as the ref put his hands up, it's a touchdown. So that's the most important thing for Wilde to matter. So it was cold as could be, right? The Raiders didn't want to be there. Nick Bell was frozen, didn't want to be there. The whole thing. Leroy jumps in. It's great. I saved my ticket stuff. When he was inducted into the Packer Hall of Fame, I got to present him. And I said, there's 100,000 people now that said they were there. And I reached in my pocket and I pulled out my ticket stuff and I said, but I got this to prove that I was there. Then here's the side part of the story. I was sitting inside with my dad in his club seat, nice and toasty warm. So sounds cool, like I was out there with the people. No. I was in there. I was gloves off and relaxing in the temperate club seat when it happened.
We'll do it again.
Damn it.
We'll do it again tomorrow. This is the Homer Hour, 94.5 ESPN.